John and Mary Ann Kuharski, which we've enjoyed their excellent conversation and stories, and I'm sure we'll share some with you, are the parents of 13 children, 6 of whom were adopted, and of mixed races with special needs. And they are now the grandparents of many, with 2 more on the way. If you think back to 1966, now I was a 6-year-old lad back then. I don't know what you guys were, but that's when they were married at St. Charles Borromeo 52 years ago. But congratulations on that. They're still active members of St. Charles Borromeo, where they actually went to school. And for those that don't know, that's in northeast Minneapolis and St. Anthony. John has also been active in the Knights of Columbus, and Mary Ann in the Council of Catholic Women. Many of you probably know this, but they are founders and directors of Pro-Life Across America. At the time it was Pro-Life Across the United States. Known as the Billboard People, they offer alternatives to abortion and assistance to those in need. In 1989, if you can think back to what you were doing then, they were founding Pro-Life Across America. It's now in its 30th year. The group annually broadcasts over 3,000 radio messages. And last year alone had, anybody want to venture a guess on the number of billboards? 8,500 billboards across 44 states. Every ad will feature an 800 hotline number for those seeking pregnancy support, adoption information, or post-abortion services. John is a retired controller of Hennepin County and now has more time for one of his hobbies, or 4 his hobbies, one of which is classic cars and golf. He's a board member and treasurer of Pro-Life Across America. Mary Ann was a full-time homemaker until the last of their children went on to school. She now directs the work of Pro-Life Across America, in addition to her monthly column, which you may read in the Catholic Servant. She's an author of 5 books, and they are called Raising Catholic Children, Parenting with Prayer, are published by the Sunday Visitor Press. The 3rd book is Building a Legacy of Love, Outnumbered, Raising 13 Children with Humor and Prayer, and most recently, Prayers for Life, a daily devotional. She does have a table in the back if you care to look at things. John and Mary Ann are recipients of the Catholics of the Year Award by the Minnesota Catholic Defense League and Relevant Radio's Christ Brings Hope Award in 2017. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce John and Mary Ann.
I'd like to thank all the guys in the audience for convincing their wives to come tonight. When Father Johnson called Mary Ann and asked us to talk, I told Mary Ann, no, I'm not interested. I don't like talking in front of big groups, I just don't like that type of a thing. But I think I said that at least, I don't know how many times, and then all of a sudden she came and she said, well, I told Father, yes, we would do it. So it kind of reminds me of a story I heard one time. It was about this rancher in Texas. Of course, Texas, how big Texas is. He asked Father Johnson. So he had this great big ranch and he wanted to have a party and invite a whole bunch of people. And he thought, I have to have something, unusual. So he had this great big swimming pool in the backyard, so he decided to rent a shark. And he had the shark delivered, and all the guests came, and they were all by the swimming pool, and they're all looking, and this shark is swimming back and forth. And he says, well, I'm going to make it interesting. He says, if anybody will jump in the pool, swim to the other side, I'll give them a choice of 3 things. One would be like $10 million. One would be half of my ranch, of the thousands of acres of land I have. And the third would be my beautiful daughter's hand in marriage. And all of a sudden, splash, guy's in the water and he's swimming like man to the other side and just gets out as the shark's gonna grab him. And the rancher said, well, he says, I'm a man of my words. So he went up to the guy and he says, do you want the $10 million? And he says, no, I got a lot of money. He says, do you want half of my ranch? He says, no, I got a ranch down the road that's twice as big as yours. And he says, you want my daughter's hand in marriage? He says, no, I've been married for 25 years to a beautiful wife. And he says, well, what do you want? He says, I want the name of the guy that pushed me in the pool. That's what I think of Mary Ann pushing. Mary Ann said there'd probably be only a few people come and I would have to say a few things about marriage, and definitely it'll only be a few. She's the speaker in our family. She goes out and does quite a few things, and sometimes she actually, I call it, traps me into being up here. But it reminds me of another story. Now this is the true one. This is about 10 years ago or so. It was during the winter, we had all kinds of snow came down. And we had a 2-story house and the snow was just piling up on the roofs. And I was really, but I'm afraid to go up on heights, I just don't like that. But I knew I had to get that snow off the roof, so one night we had our neighbor, Paul, came over and I was telling him, he says, oh John, he says, I'll come over on Saturday and I'll help you get the snow off the roof. So he comes over and the house is, the first floor went up and then there was a roof, and then the house went up further and then there was the roof way up at the top. So I got up and I get onto the first roof, and Paul goes up to the top, and so I'm almost laying in the snow, just kind of hold on and push off some of the snow, and I look up, here's Paul standing right by the gutter, and he's swooping the snow up, throwing it off the thing, and I looked up and I said, Paul, you are really brave. And he looked down at me and he said, no, John, you're the brave one, you married Mary Ann. Well, St. Paul does say that, marriage is, a very great mystery, and I know as far as Mary Ann and I we've been married a long time, and I still haven't figured her out completely. We do have, a lot of differences, there are differences in marriage and difficulties, and just one example, we recently moved out of the big house into a small house, and we bought it, and I thought, oh, it's really nice, everything's, perfect, a small house, and so we buy the house and we get in, and she says, well, we're going to have to remodel, and I says, no, it looks great. So all of a sudden the kitchen is completely remodeled. I think every room was changed, carpet, paint, everything, and these are just, differences. Even when we're younger and we're talking about having kids, well, I was open to kids, but not very many. Mary Ann was ready to go. So there are a lot of differences. And I've got another story to tell you about differences. There's this farm, and out in the pasture were 2 bulls. One was a medium-sized bull, and one was a baby, a small bull. And they were talking back and forth, and the medium-sized bull says, oh, did you hear we're going to have another bull come join us in the pasture? But he says, I don't care what, but I'm not giving, the medium-sized bull said, I'm not giving up any of my cows. That's it. And the baby bull, or the small one, says, well, I just have a few cows, but I'm not going to give them up. And all of a sudden, the truck comes down the dirt road, and it's just zooming in, and he backs into the pasture and opens the gate, and this great, big, huge bull comes down the thing, and all of a sudden the medium-sized bull says, I think I'll give up half of my cows. And he looks over, and the small bull, he's kicking the dirt, and he's snorting, and he's making all kinds of ruckus, and and the medium-sized bull says, what are you doing? He says, I just want to make sure he knows I'm a bull. Well, okay, I gotta get a little more serious. But in marriages, there is a lot of challenges. And, we come to the altar, very, freely, without reservations, to give ourselves to each other. We come up there, we're saying for better, for worse, and then we're also saying, and promising, for to love, honor, and obey each other. And this isn't just for a little while. This is permanent. With no reservations. It's there forever. And then we also promise that if we can have children, to have children and bring them up in the church and get them to the number one goal that we would have for any kid, not to get to college or not to get a big job, but to get to heaven. That's what we want our kids to do. It kind of reminds me, in the world today, there's so much divorce, and we all have to be on our toes. And they say that over 50% of marriages end up in divorce. One thing Marianne and I have always done all of our married life is to try to get away, just the two of us, get away from family, from kids, from jobs, from hobbies, and just get away for a day or two, like say Duluth or La Crosse. La Crosse is just beautiful with the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe down there if you've ever been there. But just so we're together and we have to talk to each other. There's nobody else there. Just the two of us. And now that our kids are gone, we get to go maybe a little bit longer than 1 or 2 days. But another thing I want to do is I want to talk to just the men in the audience here. Now, all the women, just don't have to listen. But these are, I found this, and these are words that women use. And I want to tell you, what they really mean. So ladies, don't listen. Okay, the first word is when she says fine. This is a word women use to end an argument when they are right and you need to shut up. Another one, it's not a word, but it's 5 minutes. 5 minutes, if she's getting dressed, this means a half an hour. 5 minutes only means 5 minutes if you have been given 5 more minutes to watch the game before doing and helping around the house. In other words, nothing. This is the calm before the storm. This means something, and you should be on your toes. Arguments that begin with nothing usually end up in the other word, fine. Another one, go ahead. This is a dare, not permission. Don't do it. Another, this isn't a word, but if you hear a loud sigh, this is actually a word. It is nonverbal. A nonverbal statement that often is misunderstood by men. A loud sigh means she is thinking you are an idiot and wonders why she is wasting her time standing here and arguing with you about nothing. That's okay. This is one of the most dangerous statements a woman can make to a man. That's okay means she wants to think long and hard before deciding how and when you should pay for your mistake. In other words, thanks. A woman is thanking you, do not question or faint. Just say, you're welcome. But this is true unless she says, thanks a lot. That is pure sarcasm. And she is not thanking you at all. Do not say you're welcome. In other words, whatever. This is a woman is saying, heck with you. And then another statement, don't worry about it, I got it. It's another dangerous statement, meaning that this is something that a woman has told a man to do several times, but is now doing herself. Well, lastly, I just want to mention that, marriage, really involves commitment, total commitment, a complete and unconditional gift of the man to the woman. And of course, it reminds me of another story I heard about commitment. These two guys were going to go out ice fishing on a lake not too far from here, and so they get all their stuff, and they get to the lake, and there's a young fellow, and he's over there, and they look and they say, geez, he's catching fish quite a bit. So they go and they drill a hole about 10 feet away, and they're fishing, they're getting nothing. And the young kid, he's getting some more, and so the guy says, go over there and see how he's doing it. So the guy goes over there, and he's there for a while. He comes back, and he says, well, how's he doing? And he says, I don't understand him. He's just mumbling, and I can't understand anything he's saying, And so they fish a little bit longer, same thing, they get nothing. This kid keeps getting it. So the other guy said, yeah, that's it. He said, I'm going to go over there and find out, how he's doing it. So he goes over there, and the young kid's just mumbling again, And he says, I'm not leaving until you tell me how you're doing it. And the kid goes over and he says, you have to keep the worms warm. Now that's commitment. I guess that's my commitment. Thank you.
You're going to sit down. Don't you want to be with me?
No.
That's my mild-mannered prince. He'll come up and join you later. We do have a table in the back, and we brought some books. I get no profits from any of the stuff we do. How many here have seen the billboards or heard our radio ads? And I know you make it possible because we have supporters here, including people who've had their babies on the billboards. So we love that even more because that's who's on the billboards are the people who donate to us. At any rate, so everything you see back there, we've even got calendars. They're a little old because you're missing a month, but we hope you'll take them anyways because it reminds people who see your calendar about the babies and what we support here. So if you want to see what our kids look like when they were small and manageable, we have some baby bookmarks here. Take them and pass them out. We have some magnets. Take those too, please. Don't worry about donating. If you don't have the money, take it anyways. I wrote the first book. I don't have copies here, but this one's kind of Marianne's version of the Catholic Catechism. I thought, I was meeting more and more young moms who wanted to raise their kids Catholic, but some of them weren't formed in the church. They don't know some of the things that we believe in. So it's kind of my version of the Catholic Catechism. It's got everything in here from the corporal and spiritual works of mercy, or how to go to confession. Now, some of you probably raised perfect kids, so you didn't have to have a problem with that. I had one son who said he didn't need to go. He collected trouble for a hobby. But he said he didn't have to go to confession, my son Tony, because he didn't have any sins to confess. And of course, I told him I would make him a list, and then I would make him lunch for him and Father, because he's going to be there for a while. So, at any rate, so that's the first book, and then I had some some mothers who came up to me and said, that was great, but now what do you do when the kids get to be adolescent? How do you talk to them about that? Sex and dating and everything else. So I wrote this book, and it's called Building a Legacy of Love, and that too is back there. And then the latest book is the one on Prayers for Life, which is just kind of a daily devotional. So they're here. Take them if you want to give them as gifts or to friends or something else. Again, I don't make any profit. Pro-Life Across America does. And John, now that you know my Polish prince here, John, you have to take this stuff from me because it's falling all over the place. John says, you pro-life people need to laugh more. And so, thank you, Father. John heard me, but it takes a while for him to register. So, that's not kidding. When I first got married, they said, now the way you treat your husband is you're never supposed to bring up any issues, until after they've come home from work and had a nice meal. And I decided my husband is like a cow chewing cud, It would take him till the next morning to figure out what he wanted to say about a problem. So I learned early in our marriage, call him at work. Get him upset. So that he is going to think about that for the rest of the afternoon. By the time he gets home, he may have an answer for me. You know? So, John and I are typical examples of two people who had nothing in common. I came from an Italian. I'm actually an orphanage kid. I was adopted at the age of 9 months. John, if he were here, says he always tells the kids it took him 9 months to find someone that wanted her. At any rate, I was adopted into a wonderful but very volatile Italian family. My parents loved us kids, but they fought very vigorously for most of their married lives. And that's all I ever knew. And he came, he's my Mr. Mild-mannered, everything is like, his mother used to say once in a while when we started adopting all his kids, she said, I wonder what would have happened if he would have married the nice Polish girl. I said, he would have died from lack of stimulation. So, you know, we have the 13 kids. I'll describe them quickly. We have one from Vietnam, well, one from the Philippines, two from Vietnam, one black Vietnamese, one full Vietnamese, one from Calcutta, India, one Mexican American, one black American. I used to tell the kids I got them color coordinated so I could tell them apart, but so they didn't think it was funny. And we would take up two pews at church, you know, and my one son, he just thought it was so terrible being in this big family. He said, I hate going to church together. We're like a parade, everyone's watching us. We had an usher that would say the first two pews was, I said, believe me, they're not looking at you. You're not that interesting, you know. But people would ask us, you know, how did you do it? I said, well, John is an accountant. How many here know what accountants are like to live with? He grocery shopped. He would not let me grocery shop because I buy what I like. He buys what he has a coupon for or what we can afford. I mean, I didn't know there was a difference, but I guess there was a vast difference, yeah. So I stayed home. He did all the grocery shopping. I said, well, we did it with budgets and belief and John's budgeting, of course. And we had 3 sets of bunk beds. We put all the bedwetters and thumbsuckers in one room. You know. Really, we learned very early, though. It's funny how kids can treat you about your prayer life and your faith life and everything else. And if I had some cardinal rules, I'd say the first thing I know is that love never divides, it always multiplies. With each kid, I wondered, how are we going to do it? I don't know if I'll ever love this kid the way I love this other one. You mothers know what that's like. And then a kid comes and it's bald and he's got this or that wrong, and you go, oh, it just touches your heart, right? And God knows how to touch those heartstrings and expand them, and that's what happened with each one of our kids. So the first rule is love never divides. The second one is God is never outdone in generosity. Now John would worry about how we're going to pay for it because he's an accountant and he always had to know what the end rule was. I told him, I'm his ticket to heaven. All his friends, he has more millionaire friends. I don't know why he has any poor friends. But all his buddies he grew up with are now millionaires. I said, it's good for him. He can go there and talk about his 13 kids. They talk about their millions. Whatever, you know. It doesn't matter. We're his little ticket to heaven. But God is never outdone in generosity. Every time we thought we were going to do something for God, God repaid us 100-fold. Didn't he, honey?
Yes.
Probably the phrase that scared me the most, but Father Kiddock, my very favorite pastor, would say, parents are the first missionaries of their children. That would scare me to death. Because I'm an Italian and I yelled all the time. I always yelled. I said to the kids, I'll get varicose veins in the neck if I don't get it out. I have to yell, you know, and then it's over. You know, you just get it off of your system. But it's true, the kids, they know they're loved. Parents are the first missionaries, and those of you who are grandparents or godparents or first aunt and uncle, you're that second rung in. The kids are watching. I never really realized how important that is, but they're watching. If you want them to be Catholic, you have to be Catholic. If you want them to go to church, you have to go to church. If you want them to love God, then we can never badmouth the church or the hierarchy or any stuff. Keep it to yourself or write on a piece of paper and burn it up. But don't set bad example for the kids they're watching. And no matter how much that world out there is just terrible, and that we're so afraid they're going to corrupt our kids, no. It reminds me of a grandmother I met one time. I took my 2 girls, they had to go down to Iowa and give a talk, and I said, who wants to go with? Well, they all love to go because that meant we got to eat out, and we never eat out. When you have 13 kids, I envy my neighbor. She said, well, I don't feel like cooking tonight. We're going to drive by McDonald's. Can you imagine if I had 13 kids in my 12-passenger van and I drove by McDonald's? I mean, they'd need an extra crew. It would be over $100 and some dollars, you know? You don't drive by anything. You stay at home and you figure out what's going to, you know, BLT sandwiches or whatever it is, peanut butter or whatever. But so we get down to Iowa and I'm setting up the table like I always do, and I tell the girls, okay, you stand by this table. In fact, I don't have a... Take some of our brochures. We have a brochure on chastity. When we first wrote the brochure on chastity, I thought I should have some different mixed race kids, you know, as an example to be eye-catching to the kids. And I thought, where am I going to get a picture of different kids? I thought, I know, I'll just go in the kids' baby books. What do they know? I'll just take their pictures and put them on this big, you know, thing. So my kids didn't know they were down there. Well, now they're down, we're down in Iowa, and Carrie for the first time sees that her picture is on this chastity and dating brochure. She goes, Mother! How could you? You didn't even ask my permission. I said, permission? I own you. You know? So we go down there and we got the brochures on chastity and one on Planned Parenthood and one on contraceptives and all this stuff. And this little old grandmother, she comes by and she's got a little sack, you know, she's got this great big sack that she's got on her arm, and she says, oh, can I take some of your brochures? I said, sure, help yourself. She says, well, chastity. She says, I can have more than one. I said, if you think you need it. And she goes, well, it's not for me. And you know, my girls are rolling their eyes like, of course, you know, they're nudging each other. This will be mom in 10 or 15 years, you know. This only, you know. And she goes, no, she says, you see, I'm kind of a busybody grandma. She says, my grandkids now, some of them are going away to college, and I write them little love notes, and I have a theme every month. And guess what the theme is going to be next month? My kids just roll their eye like, this is mom for sure. But I thought to myself, do you think those kids are ever going to want to disappoint that grandma that says she's praying for them? And guess what? She sends them the little brochure on chastity. So you grandmas and aunts and uncles, our job isn't over yet. Godparents, they need to know what we're thinking, that we're praying for them. Like reminds me of my son Tim, who used to say, don't pray for us, you spoil all our fun. Well, my husband and I, believe it or not, okay, I'm more of the mouthpiece than he is, but we both believe that the husband is the head of the family. Don't we, honey? But if you saw my big fat Greek wedding, you saw that the mother said the father is the head, but the wife is the neck, and the neck turns the head. And you women, you know, don't pay attention to this dominant, secular, feminist media and people today. We women know how to get our way, don't we? You know, come on, girls. You know, but here's what the church says about being the head. The church says, why? Because from creation, man is the first in the order of authority and woman is the first in the order of love. Isn't that beautiful? Woman is in the first order of love. While the man is the head of the family, the woman is the heart, and they are mutually dependent. Man and woman were created to complement one another. This is Pope Pius XI in an encyclical on chastity and wedlock. Isn't that beautiful? We sometimes just need to be reminded of that. And so I guess I would say our primary goal, as John said so beautifully, is our primary goal is heaven. I used to tell that to my kids and they would be so upset that I kept repeating over and over. If they'd say, can we go to this movie? I'd say, well, is it in line? Is it part of our number one goal? Is that going to get you to heaven? Never mind, never mind. Or my son Dominic, another one that collected trouble for a hobby. You know, the principal would call and say, all right, you better come, Mrs. Kuharski. We've got your son here again, and he's in trouble, and come up and meet with us. And of course, he knew that was instant grounding. And so he says, you know, Mrs. Kuharski, this time we told your kid, go in the room, take a piece of paper and a pencil. Dominic, you should be serious now. You're in high school, and you're still fooling around, getting in trouble. Right, do you have any goals? Write down what your goals are. He says, well, I ain't so sure, but my ma's got plenty. Now, you know, he was still grounded, trust me. But I was so glad that even then he remembered, what's our number one goal for our kids? It's to get them to heaven. Because we know that eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it so much as dawned on man. And I used to tell my kids, tell me the best birthday party you ever had. The best present. Name the best present or the most fabulous vacation like Disney World. Well, don't name that because we didn't go there. But you know, heaven is better. It's forever. Isn't that what we want for our kids? And when you think about it, for all time. So yes, college is good or a good career is good. But really our number one goal for our kids, our grandkids, our godchildren is heaven. What could be better than eternity? All heaven. When people say, all I care about for my kids is their happiness. You know, show me somebody who's always happy. And I'll show you someone who's either on drugs or they're mentally ill. Nobody is always happy. You know, I don't want my kids happy. I suspect there's trouble if they're happy. You know? I have to fix it or do something. Then I have to tell you about, I hope some of you who are young and still open to having, now John would tell you if he were here, he cut out early. But I used to tell him that I had this feeling that God wanted us to have more children. Because I think like in big picture, and John thinks in like, how are we going to pay for it? Dumb things like that, you know? And so when you're an accountant, it's very hard for him. I mean, he'll get to heaven just because he's stretched to the limit. So he always say, well, I'll pray to my favorite saint, which was?
St. Joseph.
Yeah, why?
Because he only had one kid. Now she was a cloistered nun, and you would think, well, why would you pray to a nun that she didn't have any kids? But we had a lot in common. She was a laundress. I figured I did 4 to 9 loads a day of laundry. So if anybody understood me, it was St. Teresa. And so he would tell all my friends, don't give her a rose, no matter what. If you give her a rose, that means she's pregnant or we're adopting. It didn't work. We still did. And God has never outdone in generosity. Now we have all these beautiful kids and grandkids. And John, who fought it all the way, he would say, well, Marianne got herself pregnant again. That's what he'd tell people. And then the kid would be born, and it was like it was his idea. He's so two-faced, you know, really. But here's what the church says about being open. I'm not telling you all have to go out and have 13 kids. You have to do what God calls you to do. I'm just saying God has never outdone in generosity. He isn't. He's never outdone in generosity. He'll find a way. Here's what the church says. Church sees husband and wife as co-creators. This is from John Paul II. As co-creators with God. Imagine that. Husband and wives are co-creators. Think of that. We're co-creators with God. Can you think of anything better? He says, in affirming that spouses are parents, cooperate with God, the Creator, in conceiving and giving birth to a new human being, we're not speaking merely with reference to the laws of biology, the Holy Father says. Instead, he says, we wish to emphasize that God himself is present in human fatherhood and motherhood quite differently than he's present in all other instances of begetting on earth. He says, thus, a man and a woman joined in matrimony become partners in a divine undertaking. Through the act of procreation, God's gift is accepted and a new life opens to future. So just think, when you're snuggling, you young couples, you're part of God's divine undertaking. And when we think about how the world has cheapened that, we just have to ignore it. We just have to be living examples of the faith and know that we're part of God's co-creation in his plan. Isn't that beautiful to be part of that? Now I have to say, he was right about the fact that we do have our differences. I'll give you a stark example. I read a book on parenting because I didn't know anything about parenting, and I was just telling the people at our table I didn't want to get married. I wanted to have my convertible, which I owned until I got married. And I wanted to see the world and travel. And then I met my Polish prince, and so there went the convertible, and there went my career. But I read this book, so I got this book on parenting. And it was telling that if you want your children to learn the proper things about sex and procreation and everything like that, that the husband has to be the teacher. All right, so I told John early in life, I will do all sorts of things. I'll raise the kids, I'll stay at home and everything. But when it comes to talking to kids about sex, John can't say that word sex, by the way. He's fine about being a father, but he just can't talk about it. So I was trying to groom him early to kind of work him into the plan, you know. So I said, when this happens, so of course, finally one day, Timmy, my oldest son, says, you know, how do the babies come? So I called John at work to get him ready. I said, this is it. And of course he gives me this usual, I think I have to work late. I said, you do not have to work late. You work at Hennepin
Hennepin County, you don't work late, you work for the government, whatever. You come home here and you're gonna talk to the kids, and I'll get it all lined up. You have to talk to the kids. And of course, we had kids that were like the same ages, you know, so you couldn't talk like to one son. They're both the same ages, they're 6 months apart. You know, what they look like. The one looks like he's swimming in highlights because his brother's black, but they're the same age. So Chrissy, Timmy, Tina, and Tony, they have to talk to all four at once. So I said, I'll take care of the baby. I'll put the baby up to bed. You get ready. And oh, I mean, he could hardly eat dinner. He's so quiet. And the kid says, what's the matter with Dad? He's lost his job. He's not joking at the table. He's not talking. So I said, okay, I'm going to go get the kids ready. So he says, kids, come in the living room. Sit down here. We never sit in the living room. We just don't. Come and sit down here. Your mother and I have something to tell you. I'm thinking, he's taking this serious. This is great. Okay, this is great. I'm so proud of him because I know he doesn't really do all this kind of teaching stuff. So he sits in we've had this chair covered as old as we are. We're 52 years of marriage. This chair has been with us since before we got married. Every time I say I'm throwing it out, he says we're recovering it. So anyway, I call it the Lincoln chair. It's got these two arms, and he sits in this chair, and the kids line up on the sofa. There's the 4 kids on the sofa, and he says, okay, kids, now, your mother and I have something to talk to you about. Seriously, we want to tell you about something. And now they're looking like Dad lost his job, something happened, somebody's grandpa's sick or whatever. And so I go out and I go in the bathroom and I say, I'll help him ease into this. So I'll go get the box of Kotex to kind of warm him up, to tell the kids, He sees me coming out with this box and, he turns pale as can be. He says, so kids, I want you to take this seriously now. Okay, Mother, go ahead. I could have killed him. So I'm starting and I'm so mad. My teeth are almost gritted together through my gums. I'm so mad. Wait till I get this guy alone. And I'm trying to say, isn't God wonderful? He could have thought of any way in the world to bring kids into the world. He could have plucked you off a tree. We could be walking down the street and then it's time to get a child. We could have done it that way. But God has this unique way of wanting a baby to feel the love and warmth of a mother from the very beginning. I'm going to this story. And John's sitting in the chair. His knuckles are all white, sitting on this chair having to listen to this. And the 4 kids, they can hardly wait to get out of there, So I get all done and I say, Dad, do you have anything to add? He says, no, I think you summed it up. I said to him later, why didn't you say anything? He said, well, you were doing so good. And he says, and I even learned something myself. I only tell that story because opposites do attract. We all know how we fit with the scheme of things within our own married life and ever. And our kids know. Like my one son said to me later, Dad never had to give us that talk because we saw how he treated you. He never used bad language. He never talked about women in a bad way. And we knew how much Dad respected you and how much Dad respected women. So Dad never had to give the talk. And it was his presence. And so I just say each family is different, okay, so I'm more the mouthpiece than my husband was, but our differences meld each other out because we had fundamental values that were the same. We knew we loved the church, we knew we wanted our children to get to heaven, we knew that was our #1 goal. And I would just say to all of you, be open to the surprises because God had all sorts of surprises for us that we never thought possible. Right, honey?
Right.
He's taking this so seriously. So I just will ask, and I will say too, that's our little apostolate, is the Pro-Life Across America. So I ask if you please pray. Right now we have some billboards up. Last year we had kind of a tough time. This is a tough time for America. Certainly after there's a million here, we love all your money, but pray for us. Pray for the person that sees that billboard, that the next person that needs help, either from our internet ads, we're running ads on the internet, or from the billboards will call for help. We Catholics are so blessed. We know what marriage is. The world out there doesn't know what marriage is. We have an arsenal to help us. We have an arsenal. We have Mass. We could go even more than on Sunday. We could go daily. We have the sacraments. We have forgiveness through confession. You would not believe the calls we get from people. I had a man who said, I paid for a woman's abortion 30 years ago. I can't get peace. I have nightmares. I think I've killed someone. I wake up in the morning. I say, no, I didn't kill anybody. It was so real to me in the nightmare. And then I realized, no, I did kill someone. 30 years ago. 40% of the calls to our hotline are men. We are so blessed to know about God's love, God's mercy, God's forgiveness. So we need to pray for that world out there. We need to be that shining light like Karen and Brian, where are you? With their 9 little kids over there, they look like teeny boppers, yeah. That's the pro-life witness right there. Love your kids. I saw a wonderful saying by Mother Teresa. She said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Isn't that hard? Love your family. So be a witness to others of the Catholic faith and rely on that arsenal of the rosary. We had been away from the rosary so long, and yet we had kids in trouble, really bad trouble, because we'd adopted some kind of, what can I say, challenging kids. I said to John, we got to go back to the rosary. He says, the rosary? I mean, we came from the 60s. We haven't said the rosary in years. I said, I know, but we can't handle these kids by ourselves. Let's start saying the rosary. So we told the kids, how do you ease adolescent kids into a rosary? So we said, kids, it's Lent. We're going to say a decade a night for, it's Lent now. Well then, Auntie Joni's getting married. We didn't say anything to the kids, but she's getting married outside the church. So we'll say, let's say a prayer for, let's say the 2nd decade for Auntie Joni and her marriage. And then my dad's in the hospital. 3rd decade, let's say the decade for Grandpa because Grandpa's in the hospital. 4th one, I can't remember what it was, but now it's June, and we're saying the whole rosary every night. And all of a sudden the kids look up one night and Charlie says, hey, isn't Lent over? We kind of snuck it in, you know? And the same thing with holy water. Don't be afraid to have holy water and fonts and pictures of Blessed Mother. My son Tim used to take all my holy pictures and the crucifix down when he had a basement bedroom downstairs. And I said, I know, it's just a reminder. Don't forget, she's praying for you even in the drawer. So don't think you're going to get by with something because I'll get you eventually, you know? Let your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, let them know what you stand for. Father was so right. What is your home? What kind of culture do we have in our homes, in our hearts? Let our kids and our grandkids see it. And I'll just end, John, by our little, yeah, let's do that. Anyways, thank you for listening to us. We're just sharing some. You can't get by without prayer and a sense of humor. Okay. Is it?
We found this book. It's called Love Poems for the Very Merry. And I went through it, and there's just one poem that I really like. I'll read it to you. It's called The Good Life. The other night I was involved in a discussion of the good life, whatever that is. Seagram 7, Christian Brothers, Chardonnay, Chablis, a fireplace that works, Chanel No. 5, 2 weeks in Acapulco, ice cream. Then someone mentioned love and a man's great need for wife or mistress. I moved back into my very own thoughts and mentally echoed the words of the speaker as he sipped his tea. A man's great need for wife or mistress, and I silently said, wife or mistress? Oh, you poor man, how sad it is. You do not know the good life is one woman who is both.
This is mine. This is my accountant. This was the one you're supposed to read, but this is called Lines to an Unhandy Man. I shudder when he gets a paintbrush. And when the plumbing works, oh, I'm telling you, it's really something. Lines to an unhandy man. You never made a lamp base out of a Cracker Jack box, an extra room out of an unused closet, or a garden out of a pile of clay. All you ever made was a woman out of me. Thank you all, and God bless you.